Hello guys, how are you all doing? So today we are gonna see, what if Luffy ate dark fruit, part 1, so let's begin the video. This was it. Countless years of patience have finally paid off. Marshall D. Teach stared down at the Yami-Yami no Mi, clenching his jaw, and licking his lips in anticipation of the power he was about to gain, and bracing himself for the horrible taste he'd heard all these fruits have. For decades he had been a part of the Whitebeard Pirates, the fiercest pirate crew still alive on any of the oceans, fighting alongside the 4th Division of the vast outlaw armada against monsters, marines, and other pirates under the guise of loyalty to a relic who couldn't admit his time has long since passed. When in reality it was all for this single piece of ugly fruit in his hand. Of course it wasn't ordinary fruit. He didn't just snap Commander Thatch's neck like a cracker just for an apple or an orange. This was a devil fruit, a cursed fruit which in exchange for his ability to swim, would grant him great power. It wasn't just any fruit either, it was the Yami-Yami fruit, the greatest of the Loja. This fruit gave the user the power to negate both fruit and all other powers. No one would be able to stop him. Commander Thatch. Blackbeard twisted his head to face the door he never bothered closing. Several other members of the division were standing in the doorway with others behind them, each with rage and confusion etched on their faces. Teach, what have you done? The led one growled out. What does it look like I've done? I've gotten rid of what was keeping me from ultimate power. Bleakbeard sneered. He opened his dentist's nightmare of a mouth, and to the hover of everyone watching bit down on the powerful fruit. Blech. Damn, that's foul. He moaned, but swallowed the fruit that tasted not unlike a mix of castor oil, vomit, and rancid meat. As soon as he did, he could feel the effects start to kick in. His body was changing in ways that by all means should be impossible, filling him with power enough to become Pirate King. At last, his power is mine. He gave a crooked grin to the assembled pirates. He now looked slightly fearful at the power this lunatic might now possess. Time to test it out. He extended his hand towards the nearest of his now former crewmates. Blackhole. The crew member who had tensed out relaxed considerably when nothing happened. Blackbeard's brow knit together in confusion. He looked at the palm of his hand, then thrust it out again. Blackhole. Nothing. He looked back down, slightly nervous. Why isn't it working? To answer his question was the sound of guns being cocked and swords being drawn. The pirates who had just moments ago looked fearful now returned to looking murderous. Bleakbeard just stared at them for a moment. Probably takes longer to kick in than what I read about. Ah well. He muttered to himself before rolling up his sleeves and grinning at the crew. Guess I'll just take you out the old-fashioned way. On deck, boom. The whole ship shook as a crewman was launched up from below deck, flying over the crow's nest and into the ocean. Teach leapt out of the hole himself, a pirate's hat in each hand that he was slowly crushing the life out of. Weird. I ain't never been that good at jumper before. He commented on his rather astounding leap considering his size. He looked around. The crew on deck had already drawn their weapons, and the ones he hadn't taken out from below were already rushing up and forming a tight-knit circle around him. You think you can take me? Idiots. With the power of the Yami-Yami no Mi I can beat you without breaking a sweat. The only idiot here is you, Teach. A voice called from behind him right before a scorching hot fist was rammed into his face. Hot, hot, hot. In truth it didn't hurt as much as he thought it would. Not many could have their facial hair set on fire and not feel a little pain. Standing over him was a relatively new member of the Whitebeard Armada. Decked out in only a pair of black pants and a wide-brimmed hat was 2nd Division Commander Ace Firefist Portgas. His fist outstretched where Marshall's jaw had just been was coated in flame thanks to his Mera no Mi power over flame. How dare you? How dare you betray your own Nakama like this? This is grounds for execution, Teach. The other crew members backed off at the dull and neutral tone in the normally energetic voice. Blackbeard slowly stood up, running his palms over where had once been the stubble of his namesake. Now only a charred and hairless surface. How dare I? How dare you? What the hell are people supposed to call me now? Ace's eyes narrowed. You really don't get it, do you, Teach? Let me spell it out. The crew of the 4th Division jumped back as the commander suddenly burst into flames. His very body actually merging with and becoming the flames which danced menacingly in the wind. You're dead, man. The teacher backed up a few steps. Well, he was hardly scared of anything. It would be a really good time for those powers to kick in now. You think I'm scared of you? I've just been stalling for my new Yami-Yami fruit powers to kick in. Now it's you who's a dead man. Ace tilted his head to the side in confusion. Yami-Yami. Yeah. One touch, and your fire powers are worthless. Blackbeard concentrated, preparing to end all this in one fatal strike. Now, come here. He threw his arm back and shot it forward. Forward, forward, way forward. Marshall D. Teach, along with the rest of his crew, had their eyes bulging and their mouths hanging loose as his arm stretched across the deck and threw the fiery Loja user before hitting a crewman behind him hard enough to send him flying into the distance. Blackbeard screamed as the flaming arm retracted itself. It too was now badly burned. Biting back anymore, he stared at his arm in confusion. This isn't the Yami fruit power. This isn't even Loja, he said through gritted teeth. But the book said. He didn't get a chance to finish, as a fireball soon engulfed his face again. courtesy of a flaming boot to the face. He shouted out in pain at the fire right before his face was driven into the remaining intact part of the deck. It didn't hurt since he was now made of rubber and could withstand blunt strikes, but Ace then chose to take a seat on his broad back. Furious reached down and pulled the book from the trader's scorched fingers, making sure not to set the book on fire as he looked at it. Encyclopedia Kuma no Mai by Doc Vegapunk. He skimmed through it. It was quite an old book, quite a while before the good doctor must have allied with the Marines. It wasn't the thickest book in the world, but it contained detailed descriptions on over 100 devil fruit, with at least 3 to a page. It wasn't until he got to the end that he spotted the name of the fruit Whitebeard wanted so much. Yami-Yami no Mai. He mumbled. This isn't right, that isn't what I was told. What if let's check mine ha? What's so funny you little ah? The teacher growled, trying to get up, but sent back down before Ace flared his powers. Ace got off the guy's back and crouched to meet his face, snapping his fingers beforehand to have the crew press their swords to Teach's still laid vulnerable back. Hey no beard. Wanna know something? Blackbeard glared at him for the nickname, but said nothing. Ace opened the book to a page and pointed to a fruit. See this? Blackbeard nodded slightly. Yeah. So what? That's your damn mara fruit. Actually, it isn't. Ha. Ace grinned wickedly. It isn't the mara fruit. In fact, there's hardly a right match up between picture and description. You've got a misprinted book. The crew's laughter only increased the dread that the former Blackbeard was feeling. No. It couldn't be. Laughing along with the crew, Ace flipped through the book, trying to match Teach's powers to a name. He found one in the Paramecia section. Here's your power, Teach. The fruit with a picture of the Yami-Yami fruit. Ace showed the horrified fat man a picture of a purple bunch of grapes looking like fruit. 20 years on board this damn ship. 2 decades of following that old fossil every command, of risking life and limb, and for what? So he can be a human condom joke. Half his life. His life. Wasted. If this wasn't the Yami-Yami fruit then, where was it? The man formerly known as Blackbeard in one last rage-filled act, yelled up towards the heavens. Where's my devil fruit? Some time before, the boy lay asleep in a dinghy which bobbed gently on the waves. His straw hat over his eyes prevents sunburn, as if he forgot that couldn't happen. The boy was dressed in a red vest, blue jean shorts, and open-toed sandals to go with his hat. He looked more like a fisher than what he dreamed of becoming. Splash! The water surface erupted, as a sea king, a massive eel burst from the ocean, eating the boy like a bite-sized snack. The boy, having been woken up from the sea king's roar, blinked away the sleep and confusion before glaring up at the creature that disturbed his nap. Oh, it's you. The beast lunged for him, fangs prepped to bite him in two. The boy raised his arms to a parallel position in response. Yami-Yami absorption. A swirling vortex of darkness appeared in front of him, pulling water, air, even the sea king towards him like a magnet. Now, well, it may be a bad idea for a normal person to draw a creature with teeth like swords toward you. The boy was not an ordinary person. Everything that pulled towards the vortex was sucked into it, including the massive beast who was gone in an instant. The vortex vanished in an instant, leaving the boy standing still on his boat for a few instants, as a dark aura covered him, and slowly began to rise towards the sky. Then he threw his arms over his head, and shouted Yami-Yami release. The dark aura exploded outwards, as everything that had been absorbed was released, including a sea king that looked like it had its fair share of injuries, and broken bones. It landed on the sea where it bobbed up, and down on the surface, unconscious. Monkey D. Luffy eyed the creature, hunger evident in his eyes. Lunch. So began the first day of Monkey D. Luffy's career, as a pirate, and the first page in the legend of the Great Straw Hat Pirates. Or, as many would call it, the tale of the Black Emperor. 10 years ago, Fushia Village. Boy Luffy. What are you doing this time? A red-haired man called to a young boy who happened to be standing on the head of his ship. Luffy at age 7 looked no different than any other boy his age. A runty little twerp with eyes bigger than his brain, and a mouth bigger than his eyes, seeing how his teeth were big enough right now to bite a man's head off the way he was showing them. He was dressed in drawstring shorts, a plain pair of sandals that you would swear he would never get rid of, and a white t-shirt bearing both a picture of an anchor, and the word right across his chest. A little present from the crew whose ship he stood on after his repeated failed attempts at swimming. I'm sick of you guys not taking me seriously. This time I'm gonna prove myself to you guys, and show you how tough I am. He declared loudly while waving about a dagger. Ha ha ha, laughed the red-haired man. Hurry up, and do it then, whatever it is. In retrospect, maybe telling a little boy holding a knife to go through with whatever he planned wasn't the best idea. Although it looked more likely that he was gonna try attacking one of them. Stabbing himself in the face was certainly not what anyone thought he'd do. Each. You idiot. I can't believe he did that. It hurts. Of course it hurts you little. It toasts to Luffy's courage. And our next great voyage. Cheers. The thing about pirates is that they'll find an excuse to drink. Find treasure, they'll drink to that. Winning a climactic battle against the Marines, they'll drink to that. A little boy stabs himself to please them, of course they'll drink to that. They'll even drink when they don't have an excuse. In fact, when that happens, they'll say they're celebrating that for once they don't have an excuse to drink. The tavern was in full swing, pirates from wall to wall drank, and sang, and danced merrily to sea chanties. The boy that they were celebrating was sitting at the bar alongside their captain, tucking into a full steak dinner like the man's own. Completely at ease despite being surrounded by blighters and rogues. Proudly showing off the stitch-up scar beneath his eye. Didn't hurt a bit, he said while tears continued to pour from his eyes. Liar. That was a stupid thing to do. Snapped the pirate captain feared by all under the moniker Red-Haired Shanks. The man looked as much a pirate as the boy would one day look. An unbuttoned white shirt held closed by a red sash around the waist, dark three-quarter length pants, sandals naturally, and a familiar straw hat. Aside from the sash, he looked nothing like what people thought of when picturing a pirate. Luffy puffed up his chest. So what? I'm not scared of getting hurt. So that means you can take me on your next voyage. He crowed happily. The tavern shook as the collected pirates laughed at the boy. Impossible, said Shanks between laughs. We got you that shirt for a reason, boy. Humph. So what? I just won't fall over then, the boy declared loudly. Besides, Grandpa Garp has been training me. So now my punch is like a pistol. Shanks had to give the boy that. He'd been Goldie Roger's cabin boy in his earlier years, and had the misfortune of meeting the legendary monkey D. Garp. He'd have been surprised if the boy hadn't gotten stronger under the old monkey's rumored torturous methods. Of course he couldn't tell the boy that. That's so, he said with an extremely apathetic look. If looks could kill Shanks, be a smoldering pile of ash. Come on, Captain. Let's just take the kid once. Yeah. A short one wouldn't do any harm. Shanks didn't even bother turning around. Alright. But one of you will have to stay behind. Sorry, kid. The pirates went back to their merriment much to the boy's irritation. Traitors. Ha ha ha. Sorry, Luffy, but you're just too young. I wasn't even allowed near a ship till I was about 17. Luffy just glowered at the man, not wanting to be made to feel dumber than the scared man was making him feel. Luffy. A voice called to him from across the room. Luffy turned to face Shanks' first mate, Ben Beckham, a man who exudes cool like a glacier. Sitting at his table drinking while never letting the longer than normal cigarette fall from his mouth. Don't worry about what the captain says. He just doesn't want you to get hurt out on the sea, especially since you can't swim. You're right. He just likes making fun of me. Beckham shook his head. No, Luffy. It's the captain's job to have everyone's safety in mind. He's responsible for everyone on the ship. The sea can kill you in 1,000 different ways. He doesn't want you to give up. He just doesn't want to have to watch out for you along with the crew. Hey, Anchor. Shanks shouted out to Luffy. Then again, the kid may have a point, thought Ben. Then, for a reason that's not just the author wanting to move on with the story, and not just copy down great chunks of the manga, the tavern door slammed open courtesy of a large boot. A tall, lanky man walked in. Each step is slow and deliberate. His manner of dress was a contradiction unto itself. He wore a long and expensive-looking jacket with a pattern down one side, strong-looking boots, and a samurai top knot for his hair. However, he looked like he hadn't bathed in a while. His hair not done in the knot was unkempt, his shirt was half-tucked, and the look on his face just screamed filth. He marched up to the counter, a contingent of unremarkable fellows behind him wearing bandanas and carrying swords. Hi, Higumi, stuttered Makino, the tavern owner. Relax, my bandits aren't here to pick a fight, the man said through yellow teeth. Just sell us 10 barrels of grog, and we promise we'll leave most of the place intact. Sorry, fresh out, she said. It wasn't that she was scared of him, but she had to act like she was so he wouldn't cause problems in the future. While she could trust the pirates not to get into a fight, these bandits were a different kind of criminal altogether. These were the scum below scum who hid the fact they were too scared and weak to head out to sea with ego and excessive violence. One wrong move, and these guys would start a fight just to keep fear of them alive. Meanwhile, Luffy had quite lost interest in the chattering of adults. This Agumi guy wasn't nearly as scary as Makino seemed to think he was. So while the attention of everyone was on the counter, Luffy looked about the room for something sweet to eat. Couldn't have a big meal without something for dessert after all. Maybe there was something good in that little chest the crew brought in. Agumi looked over to the pirates, then back to her. Then what are they drinking? Fruit juice, he sneered. I just served them the last of it. Go away, go away, go away. Sorry about that, mate, Shanks interjected. Guess my crew drank all the liquor. Here you go. He lifted up a bottle he hadn't inhaled yet. Higumi looked at the bottle, then with one jarring move threw his fist out and shattered the bottle, sending glass and alcohol into Shanks' face. The entire room grew quiet, save for the sounds of some munching followed by gagging. You think I'm an idiot? One bottle of grog isn't enough for me, let alone my men, Higumi said in a raised voice, trying his best to stay cool. He pulled a slip of paper out of his jacket and waved in front of Shanks' face. See this? This is a wanted poster for yours truly. They don't just put an 8 million beery bounty on anyone. I killed 56 fools just like you to get it. He looked down at Shanks, who had already started crouching to the floor. If I were you, I'd leave this town to me and never come back. That is if you like breathing. His anger at the straw-hatted man was not lessened any when Shanks seemed to have ignored his little speech in favor of offering to clean up the mess Megumi made. To which the mountain bandit responded by taking out his sword and sweeping it across the counter, smashing the mostly empty bottles, and covering Shanks in even more booze and glass shards. Looking down at the man in disgust, Megumi snorted, turning towards the door and signaling his minions to follow. "Farewell, cowards," he said in a condescending tone before having the door slam behind them, leaving a silent pub behind them. Makino knelt down and asked if Shanks was okay. To which the man waved his hand. "I'm fine." The tense silence ended as the crew once more burst into merry laughter. "He got you good, Captain." "Yeah, he did, didn't he? What's so funny?" The laughter stopped as everyone turned to a very angry little boy, glaring daggers as usual at Shanks. "What was that? You're just gonna let him get away with doing that to you? A real man fights no matter what. He doesn't just let himself get beat up and then laugh about it." Shanks looked at the little boy for a moment, sighing before flashing him a smile. "Violence isn't always the answer, Luffy. You'll understand when you're older." You could hear the last fragile thread of Luffy's faith in Shanks breaking with an audible twang. The boy snorted, then turned to the door, making loud deliberate stomps as he went. "Boy, where are you going?" the red-haired captain said while reaching for Luffy's arm. "I'm gonna go find a better role model," he barked out. Shanks smiled and grabbed the boy's arm to pull him back, or he would have if the boy hadn't started dragging him along like he wasn't there. The rest of the crew's eyes popped out of their heads at the sight of their captain being dragged across the floor by a little boy, seemingly unable to let go. "Boys, help," he called out. They needed no further prompting. Two men grabbed Shanks' legs while two more grabbed his middle, and with an almighty heave, pulled their captain back. The men were sent hurtling back into the bar as their captain came loose from the little boy, a trail of inky blackness coming following his hand from the boy's arm. "What was that?" one pirate called out. "Blackness from his arm," called out another. "What's wrong with me?" screamed Luffy. Shanks disentangled himself from his fallen crewman when out cold after his head hit the bar. "I couldn't let go. It wasn't stuck like glue, but like I was being pulled towards him, into that blackness. Oh no." Lucky checked the chest. Lucky Roo, the portly member of his crew, grabbed the chest sitting on one of the tables, finding with horror that it was distinctly lacking contents. "It's gone, Captain. The Yami-Yami no Mai we took from the enemy ship isn't here." "What?" was everyone else's resounding cry. "Luffy, you didn't eat this, did you?" Lucky pointed to a picture of an ugly bunch of grapes in a book. "Yeah. I ate that for dessert. Tasted really bad though," the boy said, and stuck out his tongue in disgust. Suddenly he found himself being shaken back and forth by Shanks, who was showing a rare display of anger. "That was the Yami-Yami fruit," the man shouted right in the boy's face. "Anyone who eats a devil fruit has the sea turn against them. You might have gotten a lot of power, but now you'll never be able to swim for the rest of your life." "What, you idiot?" Luffy was once more seated in Makino's bar. The place had only a while ago had been jumping off its foundations, what commotion was silent. The merrymakers that had once occupied it vacant save for the bartender, and the devil-powered boy balancing a glass between his teeth. "They've been gone for quite some time, Luffy. Don't you miss them at all?" said Makino, hoping the boy wasn't too disappointed in Shanks. "No way. I thought they were tough, but they just let that stupid bandit walk all over them. They're nothing but wimps." "Now Luffy, you know sometimes it's braver for someone not to fight," retorted the young woman. "TCH. You're right. You're a woman, Makino, so you wouldn't understand. A real man stands up for himself no matter what." "You're right. I guess I don't." She decided just to let it go. The boy was just like the rest of his family, stubborn to a fault. Sometimes it felt more like he ate a fruit that made everything just bounce off him, rather than draw everything in. Luffy nodded quickly and went back to his angry moping. The door opened. This time, however, it was by way of hand rather than boot. Though it was still the same guy entering now who did so rudely last time. "Kagumi, make way for the terror of the Highlands." The bandit leader walked into the bar, his entourage following close behind. He still moved with the same arrogance as his last visit. If anything, he had more now that all he had to convince of his threat was a young woman and a little boy. The men spread about the room, soon filling it with the same number of men, give or take, as Shanks' crew. Kagumi took a table all to himself and propped his feet up. "No pyres today. Smells better," he commented. "So what are you waiting for? Word is not so brutal that we won't pay, so bring us drinks." The bandits cheered in agreement. Makino nodded slowly and started picking up mugs from behind the bar when she saw Luffy getting out of his seat, glaring at the bandits. "Luffy, no," she whispered, but it was too late. The simple joys in life were truly the best. Who needed the high seas and swashbuckling, rip-roaring excitement when a comfy chair and a hot cup of tea worked just as well. Despite his relatively laid-back appearance, Whoop Slap, the mayor of the village, was perhaps the most overworked man on the island. After all, it was not the simplest of tasks making sure that the world government remained clueless to the pirate crew of the red-haired notoriety who were using his town as a port. Especially since one of those marines higher-ups happened to have family here. Not to mention the other mayor lacks that kept this relatively peaceful town running, so it was nice to just sit in his favorite chair every now and then with a drink so he could relax. Slam Mr. Mayor come quick. Then again, who needs to relax at his age? What is Makino? He asked, seeing the concern in her eyes. It's Luffy, she cried. And those mountain bandits. Of course it was, cried out a small boy. Wow. I didn't do much, and he's already crying, said one thug. Yeah, don't even have to try to beat this kid, said another. The problem with the Yami-Yami no Mai was that while the eater could absorb anything they wanted, they still gave off a minor gravitational pull, one which drew things toward them. When the bandits were hitting him, his body was actually pulling them towards him, and anything already coming towards him to go quicker. The bandits' blows, for example, which were already flying at him, were being pulled that much quicker, causing the blows to become stronger. The streets were barren of residents. Everyone save for the criminals and Luffy were inside, peering out of windows and through keyholes, too scared of joining the boys' fate should they interfere in his punishment. Take it back, Luffy shouted as Agumi's boot hit the small of his back. You're a little freak, you know that, said the bandit with a sneer. He'd heard that the brat had eaten a devil fruit, but what idiot would eat one that makes everything hurt more? Who cares? I know an island somewhere where they pay through the nose for fruit eaters to find out what makes me tick. You just might be our ticket to the good life, brat. Luffy didn't listen. He grabbed a large dead branch and charged Agumi for all he was worth, only for his head to meet the pavement when the slovenly bandit stomped down on his face. What's your deal anyway? I was just talking to my men and drinking when you started yelling at us. We didn't do anything. Yes you did. He was crowded. Now take back what you said, you stinking apes. Agumi just pressed harder. Stop. Please. Agumi turned to see the mayor and the bartender. Typically, in this whole town the only ones who have ever come close to standing up to him are an old man, a little boy, and a woman. The mayor knelt down and touched his head to the dirt. Please. I don't know what the boy did, but I beg you not to hurt him. I can't stop you by force, but I'm the mayor. If it's money you want, we'll be happy to give it to you. Agumi mulled it over for about a second. Nice try, old man. But you know how the world works. He pulled out his sword. This kid insulted me. So now he's gonna pay the price. You deserved it. You mountain macaque, too. Luffy called out while biting back pain from the pressure on his spine. I was planning on selling you, kid. But now I think I'll just get it over with and kill you. He pointed the blade right at the back of Luffy's head. No, Luffy? What about Luffy? Said a third voice. Makino, and the mayor turned to see Shanks standing right behind them. His crew was not far behind him either. This time he was sporting a long jacket draped over his shoulders and a large ornate cutlass. He strode past the two, bold as brass, facing the supposedly bloodthirsty bandits. When no one greeted us at the docks, we started to worry. What happened to the anchor? I thought your punch was as powerful as a pistol. Captain, get out of here, the boy shouted. You cowards again. Didn't you learn from last time? Shanks took a step forward. Agumi lowered his blade more. Up. Come any closer, and we'll have to kill you along with the brat. Shanks ignored him and came closer. One of the nameless bandits pulled a flintlock pistol out of his sash and pointed it at Shanks' head at blank range with an audible click. You hear him? Go any closer, and I'll kill you. Fear was the furthest thing from Shanks' mind at the moment. If anything, he looked concerned for the man pointing the gun at his ear. You're taking an awful big risk doing that, he said calmly. Ha! What are you talking about? Shanks smiled. I said it's not safe to point guns. Boom. To this day nobody who saw it could really tell you what happened. Not sure of it themselves. Whether it be a trick of the eyes, or a devil fruit, or whatever. All they could tell you is this. 1 second Lucky Roo, the roundest and merriest of Shanks' crew, was nowhere to be seen, and the next he was right next to Shanks holding a smoking gun, while biting into a leg of meat. The bandits were shocked to see one of their own die so quickly and easily at the hands of what they thought were inferior criminals. That was when the rest of Shanks' crew started to come into view from the direction of the port. How dare you? What kind of dirty? Save it, landlubbers. Stated Beckham, you're not dealing with saints. We're pirates. And we don't play by the rules of finished Shanks. Okay, now they were scared. Before, the bandits thought they were dealing with a bunch of wimps. Pushovers who weren't really a threat. It was all too late that they realized that pirates might not be the weaklings they first thought them to be. Back off. This doesn't concern you, shouted one of the lowly thugs. Wrong, said Shanks. Listen up. You can pour drinks on me, throw food on me. Hell, even spit on me. I'll just laugh it off. His eyes hardened. But good reason or not. No one messes with my friends. Friend, said Luffy, who despite the pain could feel himself smiling. Don't make me laugh, Kagumi said. You pirates just float about on your little ships. You don't have what it takes to beat mountain bandits. He pointed his sword towards the crew and yelled, get them. The bandits charged with their swords raised. Their form was sloppy at best. Their sword training no doubt consisted of waving them menacingly to intimidate people on the mountain pass. This would be another instance of what the FK. Many people who saw it would still question Van Beckham. A man armed with only a musket which he held like a bat, was able to knock out 8 charging bandits with a single swing, and send them all flying, while one rolled about after he'd had a cigarette put out in his eye, leaving only horror-stricken Higumi to realize what a man had moments ago about these seafarer. "You wanna fight us? Better bring a battleship," said Beckham, who was now using his gun as intended, and pointed it at the former bandit boss. This sort of thing had never happened to him before. They were the ones who were supposed to be afraid, not him. Yet he couldn't deny what he was feeling right now as anything else but fear. But he started. There was no way that didn't sound childish to anyone, even him. "Doesn't matter," replied Shanks. "You're the one with the price on his head, right?" Higumi's hand shot out of his pocket, pulling out a small bowl and throwing it to the ground, causing smoke to erupt and blanket the area. They heard a squawk of indigence and a "come here," followed by nothing. When the smoke dissipated, Higumi and Luffy were gone. All the cool Shanks displayed up to this point evaporated as he grabbed the sides of his head and panicked. "Damn. I let him escape. He has to save Luffy." "Calm down, Captain," said Lucky. "We'll all look for him. There's no way he can escape with all of us searching," Captain said Ben, getting an idea. "I'm brilliant. Nobody would think to look for a mountain bandit out at sea," said Higumi through his ill-deserved laughter. "That's because you're too much of a coward to go to sea, you jerk," snarled Luffy, trying to take swipes at the bandit, but failing miserably to do so. That jab hit a little too close to home for his taste, so with a flick of his arm, he threw the child overboard, watching in delight as the child touched the water. Luffy was failing for his life. As soon as he touched the water, his body began to react strangely. He felt everything start to seize up despite his best efforts to stay afloat. "No, I can't die yet. I never made him take back bad things, Shanks," he thought, unable to vocalize the words as his mouth was filling with water. The mountain bandit laughed loud and deep at the boy sinking beneath the water. He didn't hear the water part over his guffaws, nor the steady growling growing behind him. What he did notice was he was now standing in an exceptionally large shadow. He filled with dread as he turned and saw an enormous set of gleaming teeth. He screamed right as the creature's mouth closed over him, sealing his fate with a sickening crunch. A part of Luffy was revealed, though a much larger part of him was terrified beyond all reason. Partly because he was about to sink to the bottom of the sea, and another part because if he didn't drown first, he'd be eaten alive. The massive eel sped towards him, mouth open, ready to swallow the boy in one bite like it did Higumi. Luffy shut his eyes, not wanting to see it come. Chomp. The sound of tearing flesh filled his ears. Strange, he didn't feel dead. Or is nothing what you feel when you are dead? Slowly he opened his eyes, seeing the Sea King with red dripping from its maw, but himself unharmed. He was also being held aloft by a familiar man. "Shanks." The man didn't respond. He glared at the Sea King. His eyes seemed to pierce through it and fill its very soul with dread. "Get out of here," he said in a voice like the grave. The Sea King had never felt this sensation before. Every cell of its being told that the creature barely a tenth of its size was going to kill it. The other parts of its brain, however, were screaming out food. So with supreme effort it started moving forward, even though he didn't show it. Shanks was confused. The Sea King should have turned tail by now. Why would it be Luffy? The Yami-Yami could absorb anything, even other fruit powers. It wasn't that much of a stretch that it might at least partially affect other powers like Haki. Sorry Luffy, he thought sadly before pushing the boy away from him, causing the dark boy to flail for his life again. "Blub Shanks. Hang on. Okay, let's try again." He once more unleashed his Haki at the beast. This time the beast turned tail and swam as fast as it could. Seeing the beast flee, he turned and quickly grabbed the boy he had let go seconds before. "Sorry about that, Luffy. Makino told me what happened, how you stood up for me." Luffy just continued to cry into the man's chest. "Hey, what's with the tears? You're a tough guy, remember?" Luffy looked up at him. Tears and seawater mixing together. "But thanks. What about your arm?" The now one-armed pirate smiled. Seemingly ignorant to his mutilation, just smiled and patted the boy's head assuringly. "An arm is a small price to pay. I'm glad you're okay." That's when the boy really started crying. Luffy understood why Shanks wouldn't take him out to sea. The dangers of the sea were too great, and he was not yet strong enough. But most of all, Luffy realized what a great man Shanks truly was. He vowed to be just like him one day. "What? You won't be coming back after this voyage?" Shanks, who was now wearing his jacket at an angle to hide the stump he had now in place of his arm, nodded. "We've used this harbor as a base for probably too long. Pirates shouldn't stay in one place after all." "Are you sad?" Luffy sighed, but nodded. "Yeah. But I'm not gonna ask you to take me with you." "That's good, cause you're still too little." Shanks teased. This was gonna be the last time he could tease the shrimp for who knows how long, so he better get as much out of it as possible. There's no way you could be a pirate. What little respect Luffy had gained for the man vanished at that statement. His teeth once more engorging to take up most of his skull, he yelled at the man through piano key-sized teeth. "Yes, I will." Everyone turned to look at the boy. "One day I'll have a crew and ship better than yours. And we'll have the biggest treasure hoard in the world." even bigger than One Piece. I'm gonna be Pirate King. They didn't laugh. Whether it be to humor the boy or for any other reason, they just stood there and smiled at him. Except for Lucky, who was chomping on his ever-present generic meat on a bone. So you're gonna be better than us, huh? Well then, he took his straw hat off his head and placed it on Luffy's lowered head. Keep this safe for me, okay? It was a good thing the hat was there. It hid the tears pouring down his face. That's what's important to me. Make sure to return it someday. When you become a great pirate. With that said, Shanks turned from Luffy and headed towards his ship. Those kids are gonna make something of himself someday, commented Ben as the captain passed him. Shanks agreed. Yeah. He acts just like me at that age. With that, Shanks left Fushia village. Did he ever return? Who's to say? This story isn't about him anyway, it's about Luffy. His own adventure started 10 years later from the same spot. Well, that's him finally gone, Mr. Mayor. I'll miss that rascal, said a now dulled Makino. Mayor Whoop Slap 5 just grumbled. That boy's gonna be a disgrace if he becomes a pirate. I never thought he'd actually do it, said one villager. Out in his dinghy, Mickey D. Luffy, still as goofy looking as he had been as a child, grinned as the gulls flew overhead. Boy, it sure is a nice day to head out to sea, he quipped. Now let's see. First things first, I'll need a crew. About 10 should do. Then a pirate flag. Or should I get a ship first? Well, I'll figure it out later. Look out, world, here I come. I'm gonna be the Pirate King, floating on a small dinghy with no crew, no weapons, and no idea where he'd be going. Not the smartest way to start a high seas voyage, but there are worse ways, and when I think of any worse ways, I'll let you know. It was a beautiful day to go out to sea. The sky was an expanse of endless azure. The sea was sparkling, and Monkey D. Luffy was about to die. Wow. It sure was a nice day to head out to sea, mused the straw-hatted boy. Who'd have thought my pirate career would end so soon? The massive swirling vortex of death known as a whirlpool was dragging his tiny boat to the bottom of the sea, and him along with it. While most sailors, and especially devil fruit users, would be panicking, repenting her out, and outcrying at the moment, Luffy just stood in his boat stroking his chin like this was nothing but a minor inconvenience. No one is around. And I can't swim. Oh wait. It's a whirlpool, so it doesn't really matter if I can swim or not. The boat was dragged down seconds later, leaving nothing but a few splintered pieces of wood to float on the surface. Floating beside a small uncharted island was perhaps one of the strangest ships even seen on the East Blue. While most pirate ships go out of the way to look threatening and intimidating, such as regal color schemes, frightening or beautiful figureheads, and fearful Jolly Rogers, this one looked, what's the word? Cute to see. It was pink, a skull with a heart on it for the flag, and a swan with heart-shaped eyes for a figurehead. I'll say it again. A duck with hearts for eyes. Think about that for a while. A long thin finger with razor-sharp nails slowly dragged across the bulwark. Men around the owner of the finger stood stock still in fear. The finger lifted, showing the smallest traces of dust. The men's looks of fear magnified as their captain turned to face the man responsible for this part of the ship. Why is there dust on my bulwark? She spoke with a voice like a broken record of a cat screaming. The crewman jarred back, waving his arms in a warning gesture. 1,000 parsons, Lady Alvida. I thought I'd cleaned every part of the ship. Please, let me clean everything again. Just don't, wonk. I don't accept apologies. If you can't do it right the first time, then what good are you? She growled down at the ex-member of her crew with a sneer. Blood spreads out onto the deck. There's blood on my clean deck. Yes, Lady Alvida. The rest cried, grabbing the body and tossing it overboard before grabbing mops and buckets to take care of the mess. Kobe, she shouted. At once a small boy who would not possibly be a pirate appeared next to her in a flash with a chamois and polish in hand. He had pink hair done in a bob cut and thick glasses, a white shirt with stripes on the arms, and a pair of black pants and shoes. He looked the furthest thing from a pirate as you could be. Tell me, who is the most beautiful woman throughout the 5 seas? It wasn't a question. 1. Boa Hancock. Princess Vivi of Alabasta, the mermaid princess. Anyone who isn't you. You are Lady Alvida, the boy said cautiously. Correct. Which means I will not tolerate even the tiniest speck of filth on my ship. This ship must be as beautiful as I am. Understand? She said. Lady, if this ship was as beautiful as you, then it'd be at the bottom of the ocean and covered in algae. Of course, Lady Alvida. She walked over to him, pointing to the deck, indicating she wanted him to kneel, which he did so regretfully, her vast shadow eclipsing the sun from him entirely. He poured the polish into the cloth and started shining her impeccable shoes. If it wasn't for your knowledge of the ocean, boy, I wouldn't have thought twice about throwing you overboard. Otherwise, you're useless. She yelled before bringing her foot back up and stomping on the boy's head, making him yelp in pain. She turned and started barking out orders. The rest of you get to work. I don't want as much as one single speck of dirt on this ship. Yes, Lady Alvida. They cried before getting to work. Despite her boasting, Alvida was not quite as attractive as she'd like to believe. In fact, she was probably the furthest thing from attractive as you could get without being a different species. She was fat to the point of obese, only with thin and stubby arms and legs poking out from the sides. Long frizzy hair that not even the revolutionary Inuzumi could style even with those giant scissor hands. To hide it she wore a white cowboy hat, a checkered pink blouse tied with a red sash, and a blue captain's jacket. On her unrealistically long and thin fingers were multicolored gemstone rings, a symbol of her great beauty. Of course the real secret to her beauty rested on her shoulders. A massive spiked iron club, powerful enough to kill a man with one swing, even if Alvida's great strength wasn't behind it. She looked down at Kobe who was still shining her other shoe. "That's enough, you stupid worm." She kicked him in the face, making him reel back. While he wanted to cry out in pain, he knew better than to whine and complain. "Haha. Sorry Lady Alvida. Funny is it? Well, if you've got time to laugh then you have time to scrub toilets." He smiled. "Yes, milady." She glared at him then turned away, not seeing his smile slip off his face and fall into a defeated expression. Right away. Back on the island that acted as Alvida's base were two buildings. One was the storehouse for supplies, and the other for loot. Unfortunately these places also had bathrooms which Kobe had to clean. On his way to the loot storehouse he heard a clunking coming from the rocky shore side. Walking over he spotted a rum barrel just floating in the ocean. Lady Alvida wouldn't want litter around her ship, he thought. He reached down and grabbed one of the barrel's sides and started rolling it along the rocks till it got to the beach so he could roll it up. Off. "These things are heavy. Must be full," he commented and rolled the barrel to the supply warehouse. He didn't even need to open the door as one of the crew was already inside with two others, opening the door when he heard the rolling. "What did you get there, Kobe?" "Well, this barrel washed ashore. It feels quite full and I'm not sure what to do with it." "I know what we could do," said another guy in the warehouse. "Let's drink it. It's gotta be rum in there after all." The first guy rubbed the back of his neck. "You sure? Lady Alvida would kill us if she found out." "She won't find out," said the last guy. "Us and Kobe are the only ones who know about it. And we ain't talking, right?" "Good point. Right, Kobe." The three turned to look at the boy who was nodding at Emile a second. "Right, I didn't see anything," he said and backed away, letting the guys have a crack at the barrel. "Okay, now I just come on, grr the lid's stuck," the burliest of the three complained. "Then just stab into it near the top and hold our mugs to it until the rum pours out," said another who drew his sword. That's when the barrel began shaking. The pirates and Kobe stepped back, the one with the sword taking the hilt in both hands just to be safe, ready for whatever was going to jump out at him. Except nothing jumped out. The barrel imploded. In an instant the barrel crushed inwards and vanished into a darkness that was where it had been. The darkness dissipated in an instant, leaving only a fisher-looking boy in its wake. "Wow. What a great nap. I thought I was a goner for sure. Good thing I had that barrel. But I guess I shouldn't jam the top so tightly next time." Luffy laughed. The four other occupants of the room stared at the laughing freak who had just eaten the barrel from what they could guess. "Ha," he said. "Who are you guys?" "Yes. Who the hell are you?" The three screamed in unison. "What's making all that racket?" The building caved in as a massive bar of iron tore through it, destroying everything it touched and bringing the ceiling down on three lowlifes. Luffy and Kobe were spared when the force of the club sent wood and debris at the surprised boy and made him fly backwards. Instinct took over and Luffy reached out to grab something, grabbing Kobe before they were both sent far out into the forest of the island. Alvida towered over them, her face red with anger. "Swubbies. Who is the most beautiful in all the sea?" "You're Lady Alvida. Of course. But you still defy me." She waved the club in front of one of her men's faces. "Defy you? And never, my lady. Don't play dumb with me. I could hear one of you bellowing from the ship. Now which one of you lazy good-for-nothing had such a great nap?" Her tone was deadly. "Nap?" I gasped. "That guy in the barrel." Confusion passed over Alvida's face. "Girl." Seeing an opportunity to move attention from them they jumped. "There's an intruder on the island, Lady Alvida." "Yeah. Kobe brought him here. Probably to get your bounty." "My bounty? Damn Kobe, you traitorous little runt," she growled out, her grip on the iron mace tightening. "A bounty hunter, eh? Not many brave enough to come here alone. In fact the only one I could guess is that stupid. That marine base has him locked up tight." "True. But they do say that Urano's Oro is just that clever," said Alvida. "I'll tell you what. Help me find that traitor and bounty hunter and I'll just triple your workload." Hazarding a guess at the alternative the pirates nodded. "Yes, Lady Alvida. Are you okay? After taking most of the fall you must really be in pain." "Nah, I'm fine. Just surprised," said Luffy while biting back what little pain he felt. He loved his powers, but sometimes they were just irritating. It still hurt more than it should whenever he was injured, but not to be deterred by this weakness, he pushed himself to get a better tolerance of pain for things that he didn't absorb. "It still hurts, but believe me, if any other person had taken that fall, they'd be in a much worse state than a little soreness. I'm Luffy, by the way. You know where we are." Kobe's sweat dropped a little at the guy's ability to wave off falling down a steep hill, but spoke. "This is the island hideout of Alvida, the lady pirate. I'm her cabin boy Kobe, by the way. Oh? Ah well, that's not really important to me. Kobe's sweat dropping got worse at that statement. Being stuck on an island with a pirate crew looking for you wasn't important. You have a dinghy. Mine got destroyed when I got sucked into a giant whirlpool. A whirlpool? Yeah. Luffy huffed. It caught me by surprise too. How does a giant whirlpool catch you by surprise? Well yeah, as a matter of fact I have a sort of dinghy. The sort of dinghy was correct, as it only looked like one. Luffy seriously doubted it could stay afloat more than 10 minutes. This looks more like a coffin than a boat. Luffy said bluntly. Yeah. It's taken me 2 years to build this thing, but I don't think it'd take 2 minutes. Kobe sighed. 2 years. And you don't want it? Kobe shook his head. It's not that I don't want it. I want nothing more than to escape this hell. But Alvida and her crew would probably catch me before I was 10 meters away. I guess I'll be a cabin boy forever. Although a long time ago I had a much different dream. His face became shadowed with horror and regret. I remember the day this all started. It was a beautiful day, so I thought, hey, why don't I go fishing? I remembered that a few of the ships near my hometown let people go fishing. So I grabbed my pole and my bag and hurried down to the docks, jumping in the first boat I could find. But it turned out to be a pirate ship. They said if I didn't want to die then I'd be their cabin boy. That's stupid. I'm not too bright, and I even know not to go on a ship without checking. Kobe's head drooped in defeat. Plus you're a gutless coward. So you're really just worthless. Luffy grinned through his teeth. You don't have to rub it in, whimpered the pink-haired boy. You're right. I don't have the courage to float around the sea in a barrel. Why did you go out to sea anyway? Well, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna be a pirate king. He stated in just below a yell. King of the pirates, are you insane? He waved his arms about like a madman. You have to make all other pirates kneel to you. You have to gain more wealth, power, and fame than anyone else. Don't tell me you're after Gold Roger's treasure One Piece. He calmed down, unable to continue his tirade at that volume anymore. Huff huff, every pirate in the world is after that. Every single one. You'd have to be an idiot to try and beat the whole world. The king of the pirates is, wham, ow. Why the heck did you punch me? The deck Kobe asked Luffy, who had casually sent his fist into the cabin boy's face. You were hysterical. You yell anymore without a breath, and you passed out besides. I've set myself to become pirate king. Even if I die, I'll be happy knowing I tried. Wow, what guts. Kobe didn't think he'd ever met someone with so much raw nerve as this guy before. He sure as hell didn't see it from any of the guys on Alvida's ship. You're really not afraid to die. Nah. Besides, I believe I can do it. Or I'm just kidding myself. Luffy scratched his chin in thought. Kobe didn't even feel the tears pour down his face. This was exactly what he needed to hear. Do you think it's possible that I could join the Navy? Luffy just looked at the boy puzzled. Ever since I was a little boy I've wanted to be a Marine. To fight bad guys like that fat witch of a pirate. He stood up, hands bunched in front of him. Do you think I can do it right? Luffy shrugged. How would I know? It doesn't matter. I'm gonna do it. Even if I don't make it, even if Alvida latches me and kills me before I get away, I'll have at least tried. It's better than a miserable life here. I'll become a Marine. Then I'll catch Alvida. What was it you runt? A kind of feminine voice yelled. A tremendous force came crashing down just in front of Kobe, utterly crushing Kobe's boat and his dreams along with it. Seeing Kobe's despair, Alvida grinned. You think you could escape me? You're mine forever, Kobe. And don't forget it. She turned her attention to the supposed bounty hunter. Not nearly as tall, scarier, generally threatening as she had thought he would be. This is the bounty hunter you were talking about? She asked the men behind her. Idiots. This isn't Zoro. This isn't even a bounty hunter. Looks more like a fisherman who got washed ashore. Our apologies to Lady Alvida. One said in a rushed voice, laying the mace over her shoulder. Who is the most beautiful woman in the seas? Answer me. She pointed the mace at Kobe. Habit and fear overtook Kobe, as practiced words overtook his voice. Urel. Hey Kobe. Who's the sad ugly crone? Luffy asked Kobe. Oh crap. Their men backed up, as far as they could. Kobe's jaw fell past his knees. Alvida's was clenched hard enough to crush granite. Her pupils shrank to needle points. We're all gonna die. Shouted a crewman before running away. Run away like little girls. Screamed another following the first. Kobe grabbed Luffy's shoulders and began shaking him. Finding holding on to the boy quite difficult given he was sweating more than a pig in a butcher's. Luffy stopped. In all the seas Alvida is. Even if I die I'll be happy knowing I tried. It is the fattest, ugliest old hag of them all. You little. I won't take it back. You're just a witch who has to threaten people to compliment because you have nothing to compliment. Good one, Kobe. Shut up. It doesn't matter what you say cause you're both going to die. She screamed in a high enough pitch to crack Kobe's glasses, bringing the mace down as hard as she could on Kobe, who was pushed out of the way at the last second by Luffy, taking the full force of the iron spiked club on his head. Luffy. Ha! That's one down. Now for you, you little grunt snot. Come on. Why won't you move? Kobe stared at the bizarre scene in front of him. Luffy by all reason should be a broken and bloody heap on the ground by now. The mace was actually buried for a few inches in his skull. Yet for some reason he was still standing, not even as much as a drop of blood coming from the corpse, or a sign that even his hat was damaged, let alone his head. Stranger still, Alvida was red in the face from exertion, trying for all she was worth to pull the mace away from Luffy, which she seemed incapable of doing. That won't work, said the body. Electricity ran through Kobe when he heard that. No way. Wonder besets wonder. Not only was Luffy fine, but underneath that hat he was grinning from ear to ear. Nothing gets away from me. Absorption. Alvida, who had been focused on freeing her only leverage against her men, felt herself get pulled forward. Her mace actually got pulled into the boy's skin, with the faintest hint of a dark outline surrounding the area it was rushing into. Release. Whack. As fast as it got pulled into the boy's skin, it shot out again. A thin angled length of iron shot out of his palm with the power of a cannonball behind it, and decking her in a viscous uppercut, sending the wail of a woman flying back 50 feet, landing with a crash and a dead faint. The Alvida pirates surrounded their defeated boss. Shock and horror on every face. He just beat Alvida. Effortlessly. Crowded one. The mace just shot out of his hand. Barked another. Staring at Luffy, as they once did Alvida when she got angry. Luffy glared back at them. His eyes draw them in, threatening to consume them. I'm taking Kobe to join the Marines. So give us a dinghy or I'll do to you what I did to the bat. Bat. Alvida was the one he defeated, so why would the bat be a bigger threat? They looked over to where the iron mace had landed after smacking Alvida. The men's eyes grew as saucers when they saw the deadly mace, once as wide as their torsos and covered in thumb-long spikes, was now as thin as a broom handle and just as smooth, except for the dozens of dents and dings, scratched and bent to such a degree that it looked more like a metal pretzel that someone had tried to untwist but just gave up and left. Faced with such a threat, the pirates wisely and quietly said, "Yes, sir. Yami-Yami fruit. That's a devil fruit, right?" asked Kobe, who was still wiping away tears of happiness even after a good 10 minutes of sailing in his new dinghy. "Yep. I'm a human black hole. And all it cost me was my ability to swim," Luffy said, grinning. "If you can't swim, then you shouldn't sit on that tiny ship head, should you?" Kobe thought, seeing his new friend sit cross-legged on a thin piece of wood dangling over the water teasingly. Luffy moves so much as an inch in the wrong direction, and he'll have had his third close call of the day. "So Luffy," Kobe said, trying to shift the conversation. "If you're aiming to be king of the pirates, that means you'll have to enter the Grand Line, right?" "Yep. But it is dangerous. They call it the pirates' graveyard for a reason, you know." Luffy shrugged. "That's why I'm gonna build a super crew. Made up of the best the East Blue has to offer." "That isn't saying much. This part of the world is where the weakest of the weak come from," Kobe thought sourly. This pessimism is not quite gone yet. "Hey Kobe. That bounty hunter guy the old biddy mentioned. Who was he again?" "Urano Zoro. The most feared bounty hunter in the East Blue." "But why, oh no. Most feared, huh? I think I'll get him to join my crew. But he's been imprisoned at the local base. He's a criminal now." Luffy's ever-present smile didn't fade in the slightest. "Then I'll see if he's a good guy before asking him to join my crew." The argument lasted a long time. By the end, Kobe found two things. One was that having an argument with Luffy was like fighting a brick wall. You could hit at it all day, and you'd be the one in pain. Two, it was a full day sailing to the nearest island, with nothing to do but listen to Luffy blather on about becoming the Pirate King. Oh joy. Thanks for watching my video. See you next time, till then sayonara.